The only reason my grandpa, Henry, survived was because a neighbor's tiny dog yapped loud enough to wake someone. By the time I got to his house, the front yard was a crime scene, blood pooling on the grass, two of Henry's ribs jutting through his plaid shirt. A trembling HOA security guard stood by the hose, muttering, "We thought it was drugs," as if that justified the crushed inhaler or the 23 broken bones. I'm Jake, and this is how it all went down. Last summer, I moved back into Henry's place in Oakwood Hills after a string of bad breaks, evictions, job losses, my life stuffed into a storage unit. Oakwood was my fresh start. Quiet streets, green lawns, and Henry, still spry at 78, tending his garden and cursing squirrels for stealing his tomatoes. He'd hum Merle Haggard at dawn, his routine as steady as the sunrise. It was peace, the kind I hadn't felt in years. But peace attracts chaos. Enter the Oakwood HOA's new Community Safety Patrol. On paper, it was a neighborhood watch. In reality, it was a wannabe SWAT team in khaki polos. They strutted around in vests, fumbled with radios, and hassled kids for loitering. Susan Marshall, the HOA president and resident tyrant, pitched it as a way to curb suspicious activity, code for anyone she didn't like. Henry saw through it. "Nothing good comes from folks playing cop," he said, watering his collards. I should have listened. That Thursday, I left for errands, assuming Henry would be fine trimming hedges. He had his oxygen tank, 2 spare inhalers, and decades of the same routine. But routine means nothing against stupidity with a badge. Around noon, 2 patrol officers, Tyler Vance and Greg Holt, rolled up in a golf cart. Tyler, Susan's cousin, was a police academy dropout who wore sunglasses like he was undercover. Greg had been banned from a kids' baseball league for punching an umpire. Real heroes. They saw Henry using his inhaler on the porch and decided it was an unidentified substance. No joke, that's what their reports said, like my asthmatic grandpa was cooking meth between his petunias. They demanded the inhaler for inspection. Henry stood firm. "This is my medicine, not a syringe. You want it? Get a warrant." But Tyler and Greg didn't know the law. They made it up. Tyler shoved him. Greg snatched the inhaler. When Henry reached for it, Tyler tackled him, full force, onto the brick walkway. Greg piled on, sitting on Henry's chest. The man couldn't breathe, and they crushed his lungs. A neighbor's security camera caught it all. The footage showed Henry gasping, then going limp. Nobody intervened until Mrs. Carter's teacup poodle started barking like a siren. She called 911, thinking 2 thugs were attacking a homeless man. Paramedics found Henry unconscious, ribs shattered, hip dislocated, bruises blooming like ink blots. 1 inhaler was smashed, the other mysteriously gone. I got the call at a hardware store. I don't remember driving to the hospital, just seeing Henry in the ER, wrapped in gauze, face purple, a machine beeping beside him. It didn't look like a mix-up, it looked like a hit. Susan showed up the next day with a fruit basket and crocodile tears. "A terrible misunderstanding," she said. "They thought he was a trespasser, maybe on drugs." I stared. Drugs? It was an inhaler. He's 78 with COPD. She didn't blink. These things get misinterpreted. They feared for the neighborhood. I snapped. He was watering carrots. Was the hose a threat? Susan smirked, the same look she gave at HOA meetings when challenged. "We're investigating internally." Right? The fox guarding the henhouse. She wouldn't name the officers or provide body cam footage. "They're volunteers," she said, "protecting our community." I looked at Henry, tubes in his chest, and thought, I'll protect it myself. That night, I made calls to the hospital admin, a lawyer friend, and a guy who owed me a favor. If they wanted to play cop, they'd meet someone who could investigate. Henry was in the ICU, but I was done waiting. I started hunting. The HOA website was a relic, but it mentioned the patrol program. The metadata pointed to Susan, SM_admin. I dug into her online footprint, business filings, social media, even Reddit. Nothing solid, but Tyler popped up in local Facebook groups, posing with the mayor during safety week. A comment caught my eye. Didn't he get kicked out of the academy for pepper spraying his partner? Public records confirmed it. Tyler was expelled for reckless conduct. Strike 1. Greg was worse. 3 citations for impersonating an officer, plus a failed nonprofit selling neighborhood watch memberships. Reviews called him armed and intimidating. Strike 2. Then I hit gold. A neighbor's son, a tech analyst, accessed the HOA's unencrypted Google Workspace logs. Email showed Susan diverting $70,000 from the beautification fund to buy tactical vests, stun batons, and fake badges. She called it soft deterrence. I called it a power trip. I demanded HOA meeting footage under the Civic Information Act. Susan stonewalled, so I showed up at her office, a garage, with a camcorder, vowing to return daily. The next morning, a USB labeled HOA records appeared in my mailbox. One video showed Susan saying, "If the law won't act, we will." Another had Tyler presenting an engagement protocol. Escalate with verbal, physical, then subdue force. They weren't patrolling. They were hunting. I printed everything, emails, invoices, footage, and planned my move. At the next HOA meeting, I waited for public comments. Susan tried to shut me down, but I connected my laptop to the projector and played the footage. Tyler and Greg storming our driveway, yelling, "Drop the inhaler." Henry's plea, then the tackle, then silence. The room froze. I turned to the crowd. This wasn't a mistake. It was an assault funded by your HOA fees. They bought stun batons and fake badges to attack people at my grandpa. A man whispered, "We need a lawyer." Susan slammed her gavel, but nobody left. Questions flew. The empire cracked. Whispers spread, quiet at first, then louder. The footage went viral on community pages, picked up by a local blogger. Neighbors shared their own stories. Fines for mailbox colors, threats over skateboards. Susan's compliance concerns list surfaced with Henry's name at the top for overgrown vegetation. A wellness initiative targeted residents with medical devices, like Henry's oxygen tank. I hired a civil rights lawyer, Laura Hayes, who drafted a lawsuit, conspiracy, abuse of authority, impersonation. Susan was served mid-gardening. 2 HOA board members quit, triggering an emergency election. I was nominated and won 62 of 79 votes. Susan got 9. I was now on the board, representing a fed-up community. Susan fought back, finding my allies for nonsense like obstructive cacti. Someone stole Laura's briefcase. A photo of me at Henry's bedside was taped to my door. But fear only works alone. The neighborhood rallied. We found a deleted body cam clip from Tyler's phone. Drop the inhaler or die, seconds before the attack. I saved it for court. The trial was a spectacle. Binders, medical records, and Henry's bloodied shirt on display. We played the footage, showed forensic evidence, and revealed Susan's voice memos. Check his oxygen tank. Compliance is compliance. Tyler cracked, admitting that Susan threatened his family's jobs. The jury took 45 minutes. Guilty, conspiracy, assault, obstruction. The state escalated charges to aggravated assault with lethal intent. At the second trial, Laura played Susan's emails and Tyler's clip. I spoke about Henry's flinches at loud voices, his walker, and his stolen breath. Judge Harlan sentenced Susan to death by electrocution, pending appeals. The room gasped, then fell silent. Susan's eyes were empty. Henry woke a week later, grumbling about his garden. He'll never walk unaided, but he's back to his collards, inhaler on a lanyard. Susan's house sits condemned, a symbol of her fall. Oakwood breathes free. No patrols, no fines, just neighbors sipping tea on porches. Henry raises his inhaler like a glass. To breathing, he says. To freedom, I reply. We won, but the scars remain. Share your thoughts below. Was justice served? What would you do against such injustice? Let's hear your stand.